We help contractors by the hundreds with all of the administrative burdens that surround handling their construction projects. That means helping them with Xactimate estimating, working with them on all the administration of their supplements, and doing the administrative services back office work that enables them to focus on selling, building, and billing.
We see contractors just starting off, maybe they're struggling with the fundamentals of running a construction business. They partner up with us, their process is now defined, they're able to grow their profit margins and actually scale because they're not held back with the burden of dealing with the supplementing process. I feel proud of what we've been able to do in this industry.
This is Larry Bache with the Merlin Law Group, helping policyholders for more than 30 years. If you have a claim or your client has a claim that needs help, please feel free to call the Merlin Law Group because we are the true policyholder advocate.
Good afternoon, everybody. Lead meteorologist John Choquette here, and yes, you see right here, finally, is the 2020 hail forecast. Sponsored, as always, by Merlin Law Group, C3 Group, and Are the Supplement / Balance Claims. So hopefully everything is running smoothly. The internet decided to be slow. Of course, the moment I hit this, I wasn't able to update the description below, but I will at one point, and if you're watching this after the fact, you will be able to go and check out our sponsors' pages on the description. So make sure you go check that out. We have a ton to talk about today. Got the 2020 forecast, and we also have the daily forecast, where it looks like we could see a pretty significant looking severe weather set up across sections of the country that really don't need it, like the Nashville area, places like St. Louis, and maybe even Dallas. So let's just jump right into it, folks. If you got any comments or anything, you can put it below. I can see things being posted here, so let's jump right in. We're going to review 2019 for those who don't remember already. It ended with about 7,680 reports. It put it a little bit above average. Average is about 7,241, so we end up having a little bit of an above average year. 2019 was very odd, mainly because it had a very slow start, but the summer kept going, so it felt like hail season never really ended. Once it showed up, it hung around all the way through September, and we also had a very active tornado season here in Oklahoma. We actually had a record year and overall an above average tornado year, but the hail activity didn't really reflect that as much, especially in the plains and during the spring months where April was pretty quiet, May was busy, and then again, what really saved the year, what made it a little bit above average, was the fact that August and September and July were all quite active. Storm season, yeah, it was strong in September. August ended up having more hail than March and April combined, which is completely crazy for having this time of year. So, how do we compare all of the raw numbers compared to previous years? Well, we had the average about 7,200, and then we're going to jump all the way up through 2016 there. Again, we did pretty good compared to 2016, 2015, abysmal 2014, 2012, and 2011. Again, those are two benchmark years in the last decade, and around the same about 2010. So when you go down month by month, year 2019, 2018, and 2017, you can see 2019 and 2018 are actually pretty similar for the first couple months of the year, first 4 months of the year. So you had about 647 reports. That's well below average for April. 529 is actually the lowest, the record lowest for the month of April, and that happened in 2018. And then more average for 2017 for both March and April, getting up over 1,000 reports in March in 2017. We actually had a record amount of reports in 2017 in February. That was the most, it was almost all in one day as well. They had about 275 reports on February 28, 2017. May made up a lot of ground, had over 2,000 reports here in the month of May this past year. 1,500 for June, a little bit above what we saw in 2018. And then July, right around about the same as what we saw for 2018, and then this is where we really started diverging from the last couple of years. August, 1,100 reports, outpacing July, and even out again when you combine March and April together, we had more hail in the month of August in the United States, and that was in part we had a couple 5-star maps. We had a big storm in Minneapolis that really boosted those numbers up. September, 596 doesn't seem like a lot, but that is a record amount of hail for this month of September, especially when compared to 18 and 17, both 200 reports or less. And when you got to consider as well, we had a hurricane season on top of that, so it was a pretty hyperactive September, and then things shut off once we got to the end of the year, which is fairly typical. October really shut off hard, and then after that we were kind of near normal for November and December, around that 30 report mark. So again, threw a ton of numbers at you, showing those totals. We really outpaced 2018. I know 2018 was a pretty rough year for a lot of folks. If you weren't in Colorado, you had a kind of rough year, but again, 7,600 is pretty good. Again, a little bit above average, not close to 2017's 8,500, but again, a solid year. And then we're looking at the big days. So how many of these storms ended up being from one major event, these reports from one major event, and 2019 didn't have any over 300 report days. 2017, the last 4 years, was the only year to do that. 2019 had one day over 200 reports, beating out 2018's terrible no 200 report days. Not even close for 2017. We had 6 of them, and then we had about 15 days of over 100 reports. It's crazy. The 100 and 150 plus report days are identical for 2018, 2019. We just had overall more moderate levels of activity throughout the entire year, stretching our storm season out well into September. And for the star maps here at Hail Trace, we made 8 5-star maps in 2019, 16 4-stars, and 61 3-stars, outpacing 2018 in terms of quantity of maps, but in terms of quality, you got one more 5-star map in 2018, and then 2017 we didn't even get close. So again, things are a little more active 2019 versus 2018. And how did that compare to our forecast? This is the unedited version. All I did is I put in a little smiley face or a little frowny face or whatever to kind of show what we said in I made this in January of 2019, so I said it was going to be years off to a slow start with quiet March, which was true, but I didn't expect it to be slow for so long. We had the activity should ramp up at the end of the month, which it did at the end of March. We had a storm in Edmond, we had a storm in Dallas, both on 23rd and 24th of March, right in that last week of the month, and it was busy all the way through there, and then it kind of turned off in April a little bit. It wasn't 2018, it was more active than 2018, but it's still only 100 reports more in one of the considered busiest months of the year is still pretty low. Focus most of the activity should be the plains, which was true, and we did redeem the dead 2018 season. It just, a lot of it wasn't overpopulation. It was all in the actual plains. And then overall, 2019 was expected to be near average with the hail season in the U.S. after a slow season start, and it was a little bit above average. And again, the fact that summer really saved us was the real curveball in all of that. And our bold predictions that we do every single year, what did we say? I said at least $1 billion hailstorm. There were 2 in 2019. We had the storm that impacted the Dallas area on the 24th of March, and also the July 5th day in Colorado was also a $1 billion storm. I-35 corridor, we had a major hailstorm in an area other than DFW. And that is true. We had a big storm in Oklahoma City, the Edmond area, and we also had a big storm in Minneapolis, which, yes, is indeed the I-35 corridor. It's just way up there north. And I said these cities would get a big hail event. I made the joke saying I took Oklahoma City off the list because it seemed like we always ended up busting whenever I said that. But it happened. Both of them happened. Fortunately, Kansas City and Chicago. Kansas City wasn't so lucky. And Chicago had a low-key busy year in 2019. So, go figure. There was no epic storm, but there was enough activity to really keep that going. I heard a lot of Chicago folks saying that it was a pretty good year in 2019. So, what's the current pattern? What's going on right now? I mean, again, we're a little later than what usually happens. It is now almost mid-March. We're starting to kind of get rolling here. We had a pretty big storm already in Nashville, and there's a risk today. So, what is it? Similar to last year, we're in a warm neutral pattern. So I call it La Nada. It's a weather nerd joke. So no La Nina, no El Nino. So you don't have these major driving factors of the ocean in the Pacific to figure out what the jet stream is going to do. So that means the neutral pattern is also going to continue in the summer, which also means we're probably not going to see as obvious of a signal. So whether it's going to be well below or well above average, it's experiencing, we had a warm winter. So even knowing the pattern we were in should have given a pretty chilly winter. Again, it's a very similar pattern to what we saw in 2019. And 2019 was very cold for quite a few folks, but this year is very warm. So what is that going to mean? Well, we don't really have any seasonal drivers to control the season. So pretty much what we have is what we're going to get. And what we have is a very favorable pattern for severe weather. You have generally a troughing in the west with a ridge in the east. So you have that warm air east of the Mississippi River, east of the Rocky Mountains, cooler air in the Rocky Mountain area and into the west. And you have storms riding through there, and that area of conflict is in the middle of the country where we tend to see most of our severe weather. So I'm expecting that to pretty much ride through into the spring. So probabilities for anything just neutral phase looks like we're going to be ride or die that all the way through the summertime, potentially getting into La Nina by the time we get to the fall, but our models have a hard time really indicating what it's going to do until after spring is sprung. And so with all that, what are our analog years? What do we use? We tend to look in the past to look forward for our hail seasons. So we look at what's currently going on, and I will compare it to previous years. So the closest analogs we have are 1993, 2004, 1991, 1994, and last year, as I had just previously mentioned. And I also threw 2003 and 1978 into the mix. And they're analog years because the weather pattern that was in place both of those years in January were very similar to what caused those terrible Australian bushfires in the January season there in Australia. So you got to throw those in as well. All the analog years had at least average activity. 1993 was the only year where April was quiet. All the others had at least one very active month in the spring. I mean, very active month. Now, I know not everyone here is weather nerds like myself or like Derek if you'd gone to one of the Highway to Hail events, but a handful of these analog years are some big-time tornado years, big-time severe weather years. 1991 is probably one of the benchmark years for any storm chaser, talking about big-time severe weather. 93 is a pretty big severe weather year. 2004 is a big severe weather year. And 2019 was also a bit of a big severe weather year, just kind of weirdly spread out. 2003 was another big severe weather year, so things are all kind of leaning towards stuff. And then this was an update. I actually put this in yesterday since it is now March. I got a little update. It looks like 2019 might be one of the closest analogs with the cold air, without any of that cold air that dominated the winter. And that should make some changes here. I'm going to show them to you in just a minute. We're going to get into the forecast, but I do have one special word from our sponsor, so just stick tight for about 30 seconds. I promise you that's the only other ad we're going to have, and then we're going to go through and then we're going to the forecast for today. So I'll be right back.
C3 was eager to help us, and even whenever we weren't giving them work, they were still eager to give advice. The things that they were putting out for the changing from DMO to RFG, and giving that to the industry and not charging anything for it, I thought was really cool. And that's stuff that I, as a contractor, appreciate. I'd recommend C3 to any contractor that's looking for a PA, especially if you're around Colorado. Great guys, man. I'm nothing but happy with the work they've done for us.
See, is that too bad? All right. So here we are, 2020 forecast. What will we have? Will we have 2020 vision? It's the only time I can use that joke, so I'm going to ride with it. So, going into that forecast, before we show the maps, I'm pretty much saying 2020 is not going to have a long-lasting winter. This is a little dated, because winter's basically already over. We have a severe weather risk today. Last 2 years, it was real winter just hung on to almost April. And it was really frustrating, and you have everything really suppressed into the south, minimizing that severe weather activity. Well, we've already had some. Anyone in Nashville can tell you. We've had some severe weather already. The active pattern that we've seen through the winter so far is continuing now into March, where we're now getting better hail chances. We're getting more of that instability. The Gulf of Mexico never really got cooled down too much in the wintertime since we had such a mild winter, so you're getting that moisture return much faster. You're getting a better chance for some hail now across the area. And I said, unlike the previous 2 years, April, I think, is going to feature at least average numbers of hail compared to being dead like the past couple of years. And since the past couple of years, we had under 1,000 hail reports across the United States in April. Just having an average year, which is around 1,200, is going to seem crazy because we're about double what we've kind of been used to the past couple of years. There's even a couple indications we could be above average in that, with depending on how things play out. Southeast may have another quiet hail year. However, just one outbreak can change that. And I do technically put Tennessee into there. So, we'll see. All it takes is one state to have a crazy year and it'll throw everything off. It just takes one outbreak to completely change the fact that we could have a pretty quiet year. And I'm saying overall, 2020 is expected to be near above average across the United States. I'm sort of leaning more into above average now. I think we're going to have an active year. And again, if you've been watching us over the past couple of weeks, you're probably kind of putting the puzzle pieces together to be like, yeah, I think it's going to be an active year across the United States. Here's our probabilities for storm season. I think I'm pretty confident now, pretty 10% chances below average. So I'm saying 35% chance of average and 55% chance we go with above average. So this is like your percentage chances of this actually verifying. So we're pretty confident here that we think it's going to be above average season across the United States. And now, I know this is the part a lot of you guys have been waiting for, the little maps here. We're going month by month. So here in March, again, we're 12 days in, and this is kind of easy. Again, I promise you, I didn't really change too much in this. Winter holds on in the areas where winter has been holding on, and most of the activity has actually been here. And now I'm going to be completely honest, I did change a tiny bit of this to reflect what is happening now. I moved stuff a little further north and a tiny bit further west. Otherwise, if you've been the highway to hail, this is basically what we had said in January. I just made, again, tiny little edits since it is now already March. We move forward to April here, and now you kind of see the north stays quiet. It's April. It takes usually an anomalous event to have anything happen up in Minneapolis in the month of April. And I'm probably not seeing that happening. Below average activity, though, unfortunately for hail, I think there will be severe weather across the southeast. However, squall lines do not promote big time hail. They promote more wind and embedded tornadoes. That's why I think we're seeing below average activity for places like Georgia, the Carolinas, and into Florida for your April. Average activity, however, extending into the Great Lakes region and then along the Gulf Coast from about Mobile, Alabama, all the way to like Texas and back towards the Big Bend of Texas. And that leaves the most activity is going to be happening in April here in the Southern Plains, Central Plains, and further east, a little bit further east. I do have Nashville in there. So again, it depends on where you are in the southeast, on how much activity you're going to see. I think we're going to be seeing more activity. And again, we have a risk today, and the pattern's looking like it's kind of locked into place a little bit here overall for the season. So I think we're going to see quite a bit of activity in the Ohio River Valley. For May, the main month of storm season across the United States, activity starts to wind down along the Gulf Coast. That's completely normal for the United States. And I think we're going to see a swath of near average activity across the east of the Mississippi River here in the United States. That includes up in the Northeast, where typically I have a below average swath. We see the activities are probably start in June in the far northern plains. Again, pretty normal. Activity starts probably mid-May across the Denver region. The front range decides to turn on once the wind starts blowing the right way. And we have above average activity across the majority of the plains. Again, from about the Mississippi River points west, I think we're going to see a very active year, especially across the plain states this year compared to normal. And June, activity starts to wind down. Again, that just kind of everything pushes north. So you can figure out where we're going to go from there. Average activity again across the Great Lakes and into the Northeast. And above average activity, and for once, instead of saying typical like I have for the front range, I think the front range might actually see a pretty above average year. And that says a lot. Denver gets hit every single year. So an above average year expected, and it just shifts north and a little bit west into the Denver area. So that leaves, what is it overall? So from February, which already passed, through June, I'm seeing below average generally for this entire region. With, just because we have a below average total doesn't mean Tennessee could be above average or Louisiana could be above average, but like Georgia's well below average, so that the averaging of below average activity in the Northeast for this year, average activity in the Great Lakes region, and by the way, average activity in the Northeast could just be like it hailed one time. So it doesn't hail too much in this area. I know a lot of folks in Pennsylvania are stoked because they had a crazy above average year, record year for Pennsylvania, but probably not going to be the case this year. Average activity across the Great Lakes, finally, feel like I've been saying below average the past few years, somewhat above average in the northern plains states, and that could change as we get to July and August. This forecast does only go through the end of June, and active activity, just very active across the Front Range once things actually get going in May, and then overall above average here across places like Texas, Oklahoma, and then heading into Arkansas and all the way east. And I know I have a big battleground here in Missouri, but I do have the above average extending through the whole state of Missouri and into places like Kansas and whatnot, and then even then the most active areas. So not only is it above average, but the most activity that's likely going to be happening during storm season is going to be pretty close to your typical range. I almost changed this a little bit, but this map has been consistent all the way since January, and I'm just sticking to my guns. I would add a little Sharpie add into it here as well. I think the Ohio River Valley is in for a hell of a year. So what we got here, take your screenshots and whatnot. Let's even step off the screen for a second. That's what we did put together. If you come to Highway to Hail, you've seen this. Again, I'm not changing this main map. We put this together in the second half of January, and it's here for you guys to see. So bold predictions, again, these are kind of fun. These are not as researched over, but more just kind of educated guesses of what we think is going to happen. I think 2020 is going to feature at least $2 billion hailstorms. We did it last year. I think we're going to do it again. I think one of them is not going to be from DFW. Chances are a $1 billion hailstorm is going to happen in Dallas. It's almost a guarantee every year. But at least $2 billion hailstorms. I think there will actually be a major hail event east of the Mississippi River this year. It may not be in the southeast, but it's going to be anywhere east of the Mississippi River. I think there will be a big time event at some point in the spring, possibly in April. It's going to be my guess right here on this live video. Oklahoma City, St. Louis, Kansas City, and/or Chicago is going to get a big hail event in the spring. I'm real sorry if we jinxed it, but I think Oklahoma City, even though we got a storm last year, you're still really overdue for another big event. St. Louis has been quiet for a while, and the way the pattern's already in place, that St. Louis is definitely going to be in the crosshairs quite a few times this year. Kansas City, much like Oklahoma City, is well overdue for some storms, and Chicago got real close to having an epic storm last year, and I think again, the way the pattern is in place, we could see a big storm there this year as well. And these aren't guarantees. These are bold predictions based on analogs, overdue events, experience, and I do have that GIF that's going to be here forever. It's a bold strategy column. Let's see if it pays off for them. So that's what we got for 2020. So we went real wide. Let's narrow it down to just today. We have a tornado watch already in effect across areas of all the states except for Texas that I mentioned here. Missouri, Tennessee, Kentucky, tornado watch in effect right before I went live here. So it looks like a busy, severe weather day. Tornadoes, wind, hail, all that good stuff. And then possibly even into Texas. We might be talking about some storms in Dallas if you do your hail dance hard enough. We also have hail possible for West Texas tomorrow evening. And then we have once again, an active stretch is going to be coming on here. And yes, I did turn the comments back on. I wasn't reading any of the comments there. I wanted to keep the comments off the screen while I was doing the actual forecast for 2020. Anyway, active stretch on the horizon based on the fact that I just spent the last 10 minutes or so doing the 2020 forecast. You probably kind of figured that was coming. So let's push ahead here to the actual forecast for today, assuming I can actually get my PowerPoint to decide, oh no, things aren't responding, guys. So anyway, you have that. I can take, there we go. I was going to say I'll answer some questions if I can't get the computer to load. This is your hail forecast for today. It is a pretty big risk, assuming things will actually work for me here. All right, well, since we're not responding, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to answer any questions that we have. You can keep the questions coming in on the screen as my computer decides when it wants to get going. Okay, there we go. So there you go. Here's the risk. If you haven't watched yet this year, we have changed our graphics system. We have done away with the percentage numbers, and we instead have these fun colors here, easy for you to see. You have the risk levels. So instead of numbers, so instead of those confusing percentage numbers, we go green's low risk, yellow's a moderate risk, red's like a high risk, and then pink's that extreme risk, or almost guaranteeing that I have storms. And the most significant is where the overall area where that best chance for hail is going to be. And then the size potential, which is the swaths in here. If you have a Hail Trace subscription, it's going to reflect the exact size that we have for here. So most significant area is going to be from about St. Louis down to about Jackson, Tennessee, and I have Nashville just outside of it. I have a low risk for hail for Nashville. I think you have a much higher chance of wind and tornadoes, unfortunately. But again, this all takes is one supercell. I mean, last week we saw that exact thing happen to change everything. I got high, I think it's my first little red point so far this year for Evansville, Indiana. A lot of the computer models, everything we've been pointing at seems to be showing a lot of activity along the Ohio River, extending from about Paducah all the way to maybe even Louisville, Kentucky. So this whole area I think is your best chance, the most significant threat. You could have hail upwards of 2 inches in diameter, maybe even closer to tennis balls if a storm goes particularly intense. We got a lower chance. I almost changed this to a moderate chance for Little Rock. It looks like things are actually getting a little more favorable across central Arkansas. And yes, there is a low chance for some maybe up to golf ball size hail at your strongest for the DFW Metro for later on this evening. So we're going to break this down by city. We're going to start with Evansville, Indiana, since they had the little red point. Max hail size is going to be up to maybe 2.25 inches in diameter, and that storm timeline 3 to 9 p.m. So a couple hours from now through about 9 p.m. Chance of 1 inch hail, it's going to be pretty high, but the chance for 1.75 inch hail or larger, I'd say about moderate chance for that, and a high chance you're going to be seeing in or around that area if storms do happen of at least quarter size hail. Push over to St. Louis. I haven't had anything for St. Louis yet this year. Chance is going to be around now. We have some storms off to the west, and then we'll be moving through till about 3 p.m. That max hail size for St. Louis may be up to golf ball size hail if we can get a supercell to really get its act together pretty quick here. Overall, moderate chance for that 1 inch hail, but the chance for golf ball size hail is right on that border of moderate and low. It really comes down to if the storms that are off to your west on, I think it's I-70 right now, can get its act together a little bit better and have the potential to be more supercellular, give that better chance for some big hail. And finally, I got Dallas-Fort Worth on here for you guys between about 5 and 8 p.m. tonight around dinner time. Golf ball size hail, if anything does actually happen to go severe, but it's a pretty low chance. A low chance of quarters and even lower chance, a very low chance to get to that golf ball size. But if any storms do happen, well, we could have that go down. So we're going to be watching that super carefully as always. And, just stay tuned. We'll definitely be here for live coverage since this is all expected to happen during the day and not at 2 in the morning. So here we go. Let's look at that wind threat. We have, again, the risk, much significant area, much larger. We have the potential for some Boeing line segments. They're going to have some strong winds upwards of 70 miles an hour. And there you go. We got Nashville, Evansville, St. Louis, Jackson, all in that moderate risk for some gusty winds. And then especially within the significant area from about Evansville down to Nashville, Jackson, I think you have an elevated tornado risk as well. Low risk here in Dallas, that's if anything even happens, and then lower risks in the fringes of the map there. So that's what we're expecting for wind across your risk area for today. And finally, here's that future radar for this afternoon. We're starting in the Ohio River Valley where you see a lot of activity. Look at all that explode in the evening hours here. So you have that initial risk where a couple storms have already started this afternoon. Pushing through, these could be the best chance for big time hail and tornadoes. And then all the other activity that forms closer to dinner time across places like Arkansas and Missouri, and that extends into Kentucky and Tennessee as the evening wears on. So it looks like a pretty busy afternoon here for the Ohio and Mississippi River valleys respectively. And then we jump ahead to the future radar for Texas. If I can, there we go. It looks like we could see just 1 or 2 storms form right pretty much over the Dallas metro, and that's why you have that low risk. If anything can get its act together and have storms go on right around dinner time, would be like 1 storm moving through Dallas. That's pretty much all it would be. I know there's been plenty of times where that's happened in the past, but we'll be watching that super carefully. A low end chance it happens. It's pretty much that high risk, high reward, so, and very low chance it happens, but if it does, it could go big. So, and then also, if you notice at the very end of the run, this is getting close to daybreak tomorrow, we do have some storms off to the west that are going to form in the overnight hours across central Texas. we'll have to watch that carefully as well. Make sure that nothing sneaks up on us at 4 or 5 in the morning tomorrow. Speaking of tomorrow, we got a hail forecast for tomorrow. Low end chance across a good chunk of western Texas and parts of New Mexico. Again, low risk level across the board. Looks like we could see some up to golf ball size hail, especially near Roswell, Carlsbad, over by Odessa, Midland. But overall, not crazy risk here. And then I think this is going to be a precursor to a much larger event possibility moving forward into next week. There's that future radar, shows a couple storms just forming in the afternoon hours. Could be a little potent, again, up to golf ball size hail with those strongest storms. We'll have a full forecast for that tomorrow, as always, along with a recap with any crazy stuff that goes on today. And finally, we're going to look ahead a little bit further. So we went from one day at a time. We're now going to a whole week. This is next week. Looks like this looks pretty familiar to the March forecast overall. We have a pretty active severe weather pattern looking to set up starting next week. Really get going. I think by after we get past about St. Patrick's Day, I think the second half of next week into next weekend can be pretty potent as well. Multiple rounds of severe weather possible anywhere here across just west of I-35 east to pretty much the areas that have seen severe weather so far this month. So we'll be keeping you guys updated on that all week after we get past. I think this weekend's going to be pretty quiet, and then things kick up probably about Monday pushing forward. So follow us here on Facebook if you haven't already. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on Instagram. I'm sure there's quite a few new faces on here. I know we have quite a few viewers, quite a few comments coming in. I know I wasn't looking at the comments. If you want me to answer them, I'll go back. I'm going to look through them after we finish the video in just a little bit. And also call us at 855-334-4245 if you have any comments, questions, concerns, you need to set up a training, you're interested in hail tracing, it's your first time here, and I don't know why I'm here, I need to talk to somebody. Number's right there. You can email us as well, info@hailtrace.com. Find out more information about us at hailtrace.com, and you can message us on intercom there as well if you don't want to use an email and you're used to texting. So you can message us on that as well. We'll come live anytime there's any big activity going on this afternoon. It may be pretty quickly after I do this video. I haven't looked at the radar since I've started the video, so I don't know what's going on at the exact moment, but we will go live and do any live coverage if any cities are about to be hit, and we do cover tornadoes and wind now as well, so we'll be any significant events like that we'll also go live for. So follow us on Facebook and hit see first so you don't miss any of those updates since those are going to happen. What do you expect on the coast of South Carolina and North Carolina? Coastal areas tend to not see too much hail. You could see 1 or 2 storms probably late May, early June across the Carolinas there. So yeah, I'll answer any other questions that you have in the comments. Put them in the comments. I'll answer them probably via text on right after I do this video. So hope you guys have a great day. Hopefully do those hail dances, cross those fingers, and we'll be back and we'll be doing live coverage a little bit later on. Thankfully, if you haven't noticed, I'm not in a large group. Coronavirus can't get us. So we'll be here a little bit later for live coverage. If not, and nothing really happens, well, that's a bummer, but we'll see you tomorrow at 12 anyway. Have a great day, everyone, and I'll see you tomorrow.